Butch Patrick on the Fishbowl. Welcome.
And the fishbowl.
Thanks for swimming in the bowl with me. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
No problem. I'm in the fishbowl.
First, let me just say that I'm a huge fan of your work. I really love the Munsters. I used to watch it all the time on Nick at Night with my mom and dad growing up, and it was an essential part of growing up for me because I'm a huge horror movie nerd, and I love the Adams Family too. But the Munsters was really where it was at.
Well, thanks very much. I get a lot of compliments like that, but it's always nice to hear. I'm glad we entertain so many people, especially in the horror movie genre.
Awesome. Well, my first question is, what got you interested in film?
Well, I was basically just a kid who stumbled into the acting business. It came naturally to me, and it was something easy to do, and it beat going to elementary school. And plus, I knew I was making some money that someday would come in handy if I ever wanted to buy some cool cars.
Awesome, awesome. Um, Now let's talk about the Munsters. Uh, what was it like being a kid growing up in Hollywood during that time in the '60s and '70s with a show like that?
Well, it was a very good time. You know, with the '60s in general, no matter where you were living, it was a good time to be alive, especially being a kid. Watching television, the shows that were on the air were wonderful. There was a lot of very cool non-reality based shows with talking horses and Martians and genies and witches and things of that nature. And then on top of that, working at Universal Studios, when you had some free time to basically be part of the greatest studio on the planet and have this incredible back lot to go explore, you couldn't ask for a better 2 years for a kid, 11 and 12 years old.
Awesome. Now, I'm also really a huge fan of Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis, and I was wondering, what was it like working with them through the duration of the show?
They were very nice gentlemen, a lot of talent, good comedy team. They made the show probably, what it, the popularity factor was because of them. Yvonne DiCarlo had a lot to do with it as well, but the balance was there, a major movie star and then a first-rate comedy television team as well.
Awesome. Now, we actually met a few weekends ago at the Pittsburgh Steel City Con, and I met
Mm-hmm.
you and Pat Priest there. And I was wondering, what's your overall enjoyment of going to the conventions and meeting all the fans and everything?
It's great to interact with the fans. The show has done so well for so long, and every generation, a new generation pops in and starts watching it. It's nice to see kids, in their, single digit ages and young teens watching it with their parents and their grandparents. It does my heart good to know that the show is going to endure another 50 years as well.
Awesome, and I know it will. I mean that show is just it's classic. I actually studied screenwriting here in Pittsburgh, and it's always been one of my dreams. Just like they did the Adams Family movies in the '90s, I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted
Mm-hmm.
to see like a reimagination of the Munsters, on the big screen with um, like special effects and everything today. I think, especially with the way um, the horror movie industry is coming back in a big way, a show like that would really do well, and I would love to see it come to fruition. I
Well,
was
write me in as a cameo when you get it produced.
I definitely will. I definitely will. Um, I was wondering, speaking of Munster movies, now the Munsters actually had a few movies.
Yes.
What was your opinion on those?
Well, Monster Go Home was pretty nice. It was fun and it was right after the show, so I enjoyed doing that. That was the only one that I was involved with. But the other ones that I saw, maybe not so much. They weren't so good. Although the cameo that we did, and I believe it was Here Come the Munsters, which was the Edward Herman. He played the character Herman Munster, and we did a cameo in it. Al, Pat, Yvonne, and myself back in the early 2000s was kind of keen. He did a pretty good rendition, recreation of Fred Gwynn, but the rest of them are pretty sad. Although Mockingbird Lane wasn't really a true remake; it was more of a inspired show of the Munsters done a little bit differently, and I thought that was not too bad.
Awesome. Now, one of my favorite parts about the Munsters was the car.
Yeah.
The car was pretty awesome, and I was wondering, did that thing actually drive? Like, did you get to actually ride around it and everything, or was it more like a prop?
No, it was a prop, but it was a drivable prop, and that used to be my favorite thing to do. When we would read our scripts on Monday morning, I would see the Munster coach was going to be used. It was a kind of a double bubble for me. Number one, I'd be riding in the back seat of the coolest car on television, and number two, we would be outside, which gave us a break from the dark, dingy soundstage.
Awesome. Now, I was also wondering, you've had a chance to work on a few other television shows over the years, especially in the 60s. One of them that I wanted to ask you about was Rawhide and I Dreamed of Jeannie. With
Mm-hmm.
Rawhide, did you get to meet Clint Eastwood?
Yes, sir. Very early in his career, before he was a major star, obviously.
Right. What was that experience like?
I like doing westerns. I could ride horses, and my uncle used to supply horses to the studios, and my cousin was Zorro's stunt double. So I did not only Rawhide, but I did Death Valley Days. I did two Gunsmoke. I did two Bonanzas. I did a Daniel Boone. So yeah, westerns were cool because basically got to dress in Levi's and get dirty and be outside a lot.
Awesome. I'm a huge Western fan also, and um, I absolutely adore them. I was actually wondering, what are some of your favorite westerns as a whole?
Well, I love the Wild Wild West when I was a kid. That was kind of a little bit into the color versions, but the old black and white versions, I like. There was a couple of obscure ones I really liked. I like Paladin. Was one of Dead or Alive was one of my favorites. I loved Maverick, which not that really wasn't too obscure. That was pretty popular. I liked Steve McQueen's one of Dead or Alive. Yeah, those are some of off the top of my head. Fury with Laramie was good. Fury Wagon Train was great. They filmed the Wagon Train at Universal. So there's a lot of great westerns.
Awesome. Now with I Dream of Jeannie, that was one of my also favorite shows that I used to watch when I was little with my parents growing up on Nick at Night. And I was wondering, what was your experience on that show?
Larry Hagman and I had a really good rapport. There was a funny episode where I played Early Friday, a little kid, Dr. Bells' nephew, who Tony had, Genie had put Tony's name on a book as a child psychologist that could, take any problem child and turn him into a well-mannered, well-behaved little boy or girl. So that was his task, was to make me into a well-behaved boy and have the general's little daughter, or the granddaughter, who wouldn't talk, to get her speaking and have us both in the same house at the same time and keeping us separated. It was a funny episode.
Awesome, awesome. Now, the last question I want to ask, actually, two more questions. Another show you're on was the Monkees.
Uh-huh.
My dad we used to sing that Jolly all the time when I was little, and it was also a show that I rewatched again and again. I was wondering, what was your experience on that show?
Well, you can imagine. I'm a kid in the eighth grade. I'm 13, almost 14 years old, and the Monkees are as popular as the Beatles, except in America they have a TV show, and this is the second season. They're huge, and to wind up getting this plum part of of Melvin Vandersnoot in the Christmas episode was great. You know, I got to work with the guys for a whole week, and I was in almost every scene with them. I really, you know, I wasn't just one of the kids that did a walk on. I was like the lead character in the show, so I got my fill of interacting with them a lot, and I loved it. You know, and at the time, Sally Field was coming on the set because she was dating Davy Jones, and she was flying around as the flying nun, so she would come over. It was cool. It was great, and honestly, I think it's one of the best episodes they ever did.
Awesome. I definitely have to agree with that. Um, my last question is, um, what are some of your favorite films overall?
Well, that's a big question. There's so many good ones. You know, you kind of, you know, everybody who doesn't like The Wizard of Oz, of course, growing up with that. Even if you get into the horror movie genre, you know, you're looking at things like, you know, of course, original Frankenstein's and Dracula. But I always enjoyed The Creature of the Black Lagoon, and I thought Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein was a great, you know, comedy venture with overtones of the scary stuff. Um, some Hitchcock movies are thrown in there, you know, Psycho and The Birds. I kind of lean towards movies that, I mean, I love comedies as well, but I like interesting, you know, kind of over the top weird comedies. Something like, you know, I don't know, Doctor Strangelove comes to mind. It's a mad, 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 mad world. It's one of my favorites. Um, you know, and there's just so many. It's really difficult to narrow down, but I threw a few at you.
Awesome. Now, I have to say, Doctor Strangelove is one of my all-time favorite comedies. Not to mention, probably my top favorite Stanley Kubrick movie. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
it's absolutely hysterical. There's so many elements to that film, and also just
Hmm.
the topic in general at the time that it came out was so
Precisely.
yeah, so taboo, and yet so funny and profound with the ending and awesome performance by Peter Sellers,
Hmm.
and uh, just a really great film overall. Um,
I agree.
but Butch,
2001: A Space Odyssey is one of my all-time favorites, too.
oh yeah,
Kubrick and Salty. I got a few of his movies in there, but when I was a kid, 2001 when it came out, it was really an amazing movie, and it holds up really well today.
oh yeah, it definitely does, definitely does. I mean, I'd say probably my top favorite Stanley Kubrick movies would have to be Doctor Strangelove number one, um, probably Clockwork Orange number two, and Full Metal Jacket number three. But I'm also really fond of Spartacus. I thought
Yeah,
Kirk Douglas' performance as Spartacus was
yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah. Kirk Douglas is a great, great actor. He's got a lot of movies that could be easily be put onto a list. You know, good
Right.
stuff.
And now Kirk the Spartacus is now a Centaurian, which is crazy.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah.
awesome. Well, we are almost at 15 minutes. Butch, I like to thank you for coming on the show and swimming in the bowl with me. And I'd love to have you show on the show again anytime.
All right, like Pink Floyd said, just two lost souls swimming in a fish bowl, right?
Right, right.
Take care.
You too. Thanks again.
Bye bye.
Bye.